All right, hello everyone. So I do apologize for the long and abrupt break that I ended up taking. A mixture of things happened. I was involved in a cosmetology educator program that was amazing. On top of that, I decided to accelerate my graduate program, so I'm actually graduating early. That was so much stress because when you have 3 classes at once, and that's a total of 15 credits, each class is 5 credits, the projects in that, plus daily life and doing other stuff, it became a huge hectic mess. I'm assuming you guys are kind of used to this happening, so again, I do these videos for fun. I apologize to you for my last video being a little abrupt. When you live in an Italian household, Latino Italian household, you have to deal with your parents constantly calling your names 24/7, and if I had to pause the video, that was why. So I'm gonna avoid having that happen. I tell them if I don't respond to you, it's because I'm filming a video. We left off talking about last chapter and I'm just gonna jump into this because we wanna get a lot of learning done. We left off talking about just a few of our tools, as well as our Dappen dish, what it was used for, and I did not cover nail brushes yet. So nail brushes are going to be critical for any kind of nail service, especially when you're working with monomer and polymer powder. Something to be mindful of though, I know a lot of students that I work with, they come in, because when you're working at private school, cosmetology, you start at 18, so the youngest students are 18, and a lot of them are fresh out of high school or not even in college. Some of them do college at the same time, and a lot of them are vegan, and they get mad because a lot of the times our brushes are not vegan. If you want the best nail brush, you need a sable brush. That is because the anatomy of the hair, horsehair, is able to suck up the product that you want it to suck up. You could try to get vegan alternatives. I cannot guarantee they will work just as well. So just be mindful of that, and if you are vegan, obviously I'm not singling them out. I'm just saying that it is very difficult to get the same result if you use a traditional brush. But try out some different synthetic alternatives, see what they work like. The book, if they also have this on your test, the best type of brush is going to be your sable hair, and usually you want it in oval or a round style for obvious reasons. If you just have a flat brush like a paintbrush, that's going to be super sloppy and you're not going to get that precision point that you would with an oval or a round brush. Know that odorless monomer liquid requires less liquid and a flat brush holds less liquid. So if your brush is totally flat, not rounded, you're gonna hold less liquid. It's gonna be difficult. Also know that with the synthetic brushes, if you are vegan, they don't pick up enough monomer liquid and they don't release the liquid properly. You wanna choose the brush shape and size with what you feel is most comfortable. You wanna avoid overly large brushes, which are gonna be in your sizes 12 and 16. Because they'll hold too much liquid and they're going to alter the mix ratio. So they're going to suck up a ton of liquid, and like in the last video we talked about our mix ratio, they're going to distort that heavily because they're going to expel so much liquid in there and you might get a wet mess instead of the nice result that you want. Also know that if you have too much monomer liquid on your brush, you can accidentally increase the risk of touching your client's skin, and in turn that actually is going to trigger them to potentially become allergic because remember we talked about dermatitis and exposure dermatitis, contact dermatitis. Repeated exposures of these products and these chemicals can cause sensitivity. Not necessarily an allergy, but it can make them very sensitive to it to where the service does not feel comfortable and they won't be coming to you or get any services, and that is money out of your pocket. And unsatisfied clients, we don't want either. So, also know that another key part of this is safety eyewear. Honestly, I have not known too many students to wear eyewear when doing this. The book recommends it, so obviously you have to be by the book and by what state board recommends. Every state may vary too, so make sure you check up your state board laws. To my knowledge, in New Jersey, there is not a state board law on eyewear. I mean, I've seen students do all the time with no eyewear, but eyewear is important and it does what it says it does. Eyewear protects your eyes from any splashes. If you have a splash and you have monomer liquid go flying, you don't want that caustic chemical hitting your client's eye, because if you monomer or polymerize their eyes, that is gonna lead to a lawsuit and a blind client. Know that there's different types of eyewear, and then you can get the most effective eyewear by talking to an optometrist is what the book recommends. A note on eyewear, and this is just a general life skill thing, make sure you get eyewear with proper certifications. If your eyewear is not certified, it may look like eyewear and it may show it as eyewear, but it's actually not going to do the job. I know that when I took a chemistry class in my undergrad, Our professor was super strict on what we cannot use for our eyewear protection in chemistry. We had to get the same exact eyewear that was given out by the library. So any kind of community college that sells eyewear for chemistry classes, that is definitely safe for your eyes. Know that dust masks are important. I guess now in this time, everything going on, everyone's wearing a mask during the pandemic. Dust masks are actually going to be worn to prevent inhaling any dust. Again, aside from COVID and the pandemic, which now obviously in cosmetology school, the states that have the mask rules, students are wearing masks. So when they do this anyway, they are wearing protective wear. Some people are wearing the mask and the shield, so that PPE is very similar to face wear and dust masks. But all that, pandemic stuff aside, I have not known students to wear dust masks when working with monomer and polymer powder unless they are super triggered or super grossed out by the smell. My old school that I worked at, which was public, the old cosmetology teacher, and I didn't know her, this was like years and years before, she used to take students in to the auto tech, no, was it auto body? It was auto body room where they had like a fan and they would do their nail stuff in there because the smell was outrageous and there was poor ventilation. So again, just another tip is make sure you're doing this in an area of really good ventilation. I know that certain private cosmetology schools do not require, they require you to learn nail services. They don't have nail services as an option for a service menu, so the students aren't performing them, which is a blessing and a curse for different reasons, but that is neither here nor there. Also know dust masks. Here's a funny thing to talk about when you talk about masks. It may feel like it is safe and it might mute out some of the dust, but you will never be protected from the vapors. So you're still inhaling the vapors in. So again, unless you have, and I don't even think the strong masks, they don't really offer a very strong protection from the vapors, you're still getting exposed to that chemical. Also take a look at, it's either in the DSM-5 or if you get an abnormal psychology textbook, they talk about degenerative neuro diseases like dementias, things like that. There are types of dementias that are brought on by exposure to chemicals in the environment, and nail chemicals are actually one of them from the odors. So a lot of these times, I actually want to know what's going to happen if they do research studies on these nail techs that are exposed to this on a daily basis. Because, being a client, if you're in there for once in a while for a nail appointment, that's not going to affect you, as opposed to a nail tech who Monday through Saturday, sometimes Monday through Sunday, is there consistently getting exposed to these vapors. So it's just some scary stuff to be mindful of. Protective gloves, this is what I see worn more often. I've had students that will do this without gloves, masks, and eyewear, to each at their own risk. Know that there's different types of gloves. There is multi-use and disposable gloves. I have tried multi-use gloves for hair color and bleach, and they are a wicked witch to get on and off, and I've noticed that a lot of them will tear. So in my own opinion, professionally, multi-use gloves are a big fat whopper. Or what I call a wig on a pig and call it a dog. They do not do what they say they do. There's also different types of materials to make the gloves. You want to make sure that you find gloves that are made of nitrile polymer powder. That is what works best according to the book. You also want to make sure that you avoid whipping your brush too rapidly or too hard against the table towel. This can press hairs against the sharp edges of the metal ferrule, and it can cut them off. So the ferrule is that metal part in the brush, and if you're whipping them around being really rough with your brush, you can actually slice your brush, and that ruins your brush. If you also break apart that metal piece too much, another consequence the book doesn't mention is that the stuff can get absorbed into the ferrule, causing chipping and your whole brush to come apart. So treat your products really nice. Don't aggressively beat them. You also want to use common sense when you're storing and disposing of monomer liquid and polymer powder. You want to store your products in covered containers. If you don't have a label on it, please make sure you label on it. Nothing would be worse than someone assuming that polymer powder is hair bleach and then trying to mix that with developer. Yeah, don't do that. Also know that you want to store them in a cool, dark area. So if you have a metal cabinet that is dark, store it in there and store it away from any kind of light rays that may come in. A lot of these products are flammable, and if you have a really hot room and you expose your products to light, that is just being really careless, but also know that sunlight can denature and potentially reduce the effectiveness of your product. That's the other consequence. You always want to discard your materials. You don't want to save, use monomer liquid that's been removed. Use each portion on one client only. common sense being sanitary, that would be disgusting to touch someone's hands with a brush and the monomer liquid, and then, you know, have another client come down and say, okay, I'm just gonna use this on you. No, you don't wanna have them sit in someone else's mess, someone else's whatnot without disinfecting. You never ever want to, you also, when you're disposing monomer liquid, if there's leftover, you wanna take a paper towel because that will fix it. Do that and then toss it in the trash with a lid. You don't ever want to pour it into a plastic bag because I've done that before, and what happens is it actually melts it down. It's really gross and really scary. Try it at your own discretion for the sake of science in a garbage can, not obviously in your cosmetology class, and you'll see that it's really gross. It like has this really weird texture and it melts on itself. You also want to know that if you have any kind of skin contact with these products, wash with liquid soap and water carefully, lukewarm water. And you want to seal any used materials in a plastic bag and just dispose of them if they're disposable. If you have your brush, you're going to clean and sanitize that separately, following proper state board guidelines. You also want to remove items soiled with enhancement products from your your manicuring station. That's just common sense. Also know your local rules and regulations. Every state is different. Again, make sure you look at your state board rules on how to dispose of nail products that are used. So now we're gonna move on. Now that we've covered the products and the sanitation and the important stuff that we need to know, we're gonna talk about monomer liquid and polymer powder nail enhancement maintenance, crack repair, and removal. Because again, these are services we're constantly doing. When you have regular maintenance, like once during this COVID thing, this is a good talking point. My grandma's a prime example. She was getting her nails done, and what had happened was, you know, during the shutdown, she was not getting her hair. Well, I was doing her hair, but you know, she wasn't getting her nails done, and they just, you know, they were falling off. She had to soak them. She took them off. I know a lot of beauty supplier stores were doing that. We're showing clients how to take their nails off because it was getting uncomfortable, and people were giving their nails a break. Where this becomes stressful for a lot of nail techs is that they have to do a full-on nail service on them again, and then they have to do the repairs now. Now that they're able to do the repairs with social distancing, they can do that. But know that when you maintain your nail, it prevents the nail from lifting and cracking or falling off. So talk to someone who, and again, if this video is gonna be on here for many, many years, and the generation that doesn't know the seriousness of the pandemic in terms of what it was like for our businesses and the stress that it caused, ask any nail tech what it was like during the quarantine and how people's nails were, and ask people what had happened to their nails if they had, you know, nail enhancements on. They'll probably tell you it was insane. So it'll be a really cool history thing to see what happens in the future. Know that obviously when the nail enhancements are not maintained, they can lift, crack, break, or fall off, which increases the risk of a client developing an infection or having other problems. If they break and they break the natural nail, if their nails are brittle, that can cause a serious infection, and that's why you always want to educate your client. When you have, this will be on your state board. This is a state board question, and it's going to be called when the cosmetologist has a client with a piece or section of the monomer liquid and polymer powder enhancement that is broken, lifted, or cracked, it's going to be repaired by filling the area and adding monomer liquid and polymer powder. This is going to be called a crack repair. Pause this and replay this because this is going to be a key question on your test for this unit as well as your state board. This was on my state board test. What is a crack repair? Or it will ask you like a question and you know, give you some choices. Crack repair is when you're going to be doing that. You generally will perform maintenance every 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how the client's nails grow. Some clients it might be a little bit sooner, some clients it might be even longer. Other factors like illness, you know, if your clients are older and they've been sick, that's gonna play a huge role. Their nails may not, you know, survive that long or may not grow that long. Or in very serious cases, the nails can actually shed if they're on, you know, chemo or heavy duty antibiotics. So you also want to make sure that you are practicing your classes on how to do a proper nail repair. There is continuing education all over on that. This chapter does get a little redundant. So know that proper maintenance, if it's done correctly, it will not result in any injury or damage. In the maintenance service, the nail is thinned down, the apex of the nail is removed, and the entire nail enhancements is reduced in thickness. So now we're going to talk about some areas of concern for building a properly structured nail enhancement. A lot of this stuff kind of goes back to anatomy when we talk about, you know, the anatomy of the nail plate. And even I always bring this back to hair cutting because some of the terms like apex, what is an apex? Apex is the highest point of anything. Know that with any kind of, actually, you know what I'll do here? Because I'll give you guys an early break. I know last video was kind of painful, so I will give us a break. Here we can get a nice little break in, take an early 5-minute break, come back here, and I'm going to talk about areas of concern. So that is my treat to you for all the horror the last video put you through, as well as the stress of not being able to do a good quality video for all of you.